Every World of Warcraft player has asked themselves the same question. Can I reach level 80 using only the Fireball spell? Well, in this series, we're going to be answering that age-old question. Alright, you're probably right. Nobody has asked that, but I have, and that's what matters here. So for this video, I'm going to be creating a Gnome Mage and leveling it to level 80 using only the Fireball spell. No other spell will be used in this gnome's lifetime. Oh, and that gnome's name? Albert Einstein. Actually, I think it's only one spell, but Albert Einstein would have been a cool name too. So starting out in the gnome starting area made this pretty easy. All the mobs are tightly grouped, and it always felt like the zone goes quicker than most zones. I'm also playing on Warmane at 5 times XP, because otherwise this series would take me ages and I really don't play games that much. There isn't a whole lot of commentary to make about the starting zone. The leveling went quick, and it wasn't much different from usual play, as you don't have much spells starting out. I killed mobs, I ran around and collected the usual stuff to turn in for quests, and really didn't have to worry about pulling too much, as everything had wide spacings that could actually be pulled. So, after reaching level 9 and a fairly long walk, I was finally able to leave the starting area and into our first small town. I didn't think there would be much of a challenge, especially since the zone was rated for up to level 10, and for the most part I was right. I managed to reach level 13 with no problem. I did most of the zone's quests. I killed boars, bears, and really just whatever else came my way with little to no effort. But then I finally ran into my first problem. Ram racing. No, I'm kidding. I actually just couldn't figure out how to ride the ram properly, but I don't want to talk about that. The problem actually came in the form of Frostmane trolls. Now, normally as a mage, I'd be able to polymorph a second target and not really have to worry about it. However, I quickly learned that even taking on 2 targets with Fireball was going to be pretty much impossible. I died, I ran away, and then I ran away some more. Now, luckily in this case, I could just get better at pulling, because these mobs actually did have enough spacing that if I worked it right, I was able to kill them and move on to the next one at a time. So it did actually work out in the end. I was able to clear the whole camp just by doing that one at a time, although they did eventually spawn on me and I had more problems. But that was another quest completed, so really happy about that. But after leaving there and finishing up some random kill quests and just making my rounds to turn them all in, it was off to Loch Modan, and I thought the last running round was bad. This trip took forever. You would not believe how long that walk is. But eventually I did actually arrive, and there was actually some quests waiting for me right as I entered, so that gave me a new objective, which actually led to a new problem. Stone trogs.
Surprise, motherfucker!
They spawn quickly, they group together, and they really don't like being killed apparently. All things to make my day difficult. I wiped a couple times, but luckily the respawn was placed really just a few feet away. It took 2 seconds to get back every time I died. I'd like to say I got better, and I just destroyed their camps, and I left none of them alive, but most of the time I was actually just stuck picking off the stragglers and hoping I didn't die. Of course I usually did, but on a few occasions I managed to run away successfully, although a couple times a spider would get me, or just anything running by would happen to get me right when I thought I was away. But after a while of back and forth, I did actually manage to turn in the quest, and before I even had a chance to go to the next area, I managed to get into a dungeon. Which before the dungeon, and before I forget, for talent, I actually just spec'd everything into my Fireball, though I'm sure you could guess that there really wasn't much else to do. There's no point in building anything else, just build the Fireball. I haven't fully mapped out my idea for building all the fire-related talents, but I'm definitely going to figure that out because that's really all I got working for me right now. But yeah, so the dungeon was Ragefire Chasm, and I'd love to say that it was challenging and talk about all the wipes that occurred, but it really wasn't the case at all. The group moved so fast I could barely keep up. I managed to be the bottom DPS the entire time. We just kept going and going, and the dungeon was pretty much done before I had a chance to get to full mana again. But during the dungeon, I managed to get a Robe of Evocation, so I definitely can't complain. I got a good drop. Yahoo! It wasn't difficult, it was pretty straightforward. It was one of the quickest runs I've had. And at the end of that dungeon, I was level 20, which was kind of my goal for this video, which is awesome. I'm planning to split this series in multiple parts. I'm not very particular on what levels each part is, but I'm assuming it'll either be like 20 levels per video or 10 to 15 per video. I'll hopefully be able to stick to the 20 per video up until the very high levels. But I imagine there's going to be a lot of challenges. This is kind of the early game where you can really get away with anything. There's not a lot of skill required to get through your first 20 levels, and you definitely don't need gear or talents or really anything. So I imagine in the next 20 we're going to see a lot more problems where I hit points that are just very hard to get by. I don't want to rely on dungeons, because of course I could get through dungeons, just kind of leech off people. I want to try to get through the quests on my own, see how far I can get through the quest line, see what creative ways I can get around the fact that there's multiple mobs, or mobs that are too hard for me, or just that my fireball spell isn't the most effective way to go about it. So yeah, if you want to see this series to its conclusion, subscribe, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your input, and I'd love to hear about some other series. If you have any crazy ideas of what you would like to see, let me know. But yeah, subscribe, like it, do that sort of thing, and I'll catch you in the next episode.